Welcome to the ADNA Presents. This is Roy Samuelson. Today we're very happy to have Tanja Milojevic rejoining us again for an interview. She is a voice talent and she also owns the company Get Braille. Thanks for joining us, Tanja.
Thank you so much for having me, Roy. I'm happy to be here.
We usually start off talking about what we love about audio description, and I feel like maybe for our start of this interview, we could talk about what's changed that you love about audio description since the last time we talked, maybe about a year or two ago.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a couple of different things. So recently I had the pleasure to attend, there was a sound walk at the Arnold Arboretum here in Cambridge, Mass. Or it was Jamaica Plain rather, but it was an immersive audio descriptive tour with sound effects, with contact mics, hydrophones, standard shotgun mics that are collecting bird sounds. So this doctor from, I believe it's Sweden, he had this whole research project that he's been working on as it comes to nature, the environment, climate change, how all this is being affected over time, and the various similar soundscapes from place to place. So he ran this tour and audio described the settings as well as mixed the audio description with his own recordings that he had made. So he almost made it like a virtual reality experience. It was the coolest thing I've ever done, I think, when it comes to sound and immersive experiences. So one of the things that I would love to do with Get Braille, for example, is we do Braille production, but we want to assist museums in making their sites more accessible. So currently we're working with Ripley's Aquarium to record their in their tanks in North Carolina, or rather Myrtle Beach, to go there, record the various aquatic life they have, and then bring some parabolic microphones or shotgun mics to record the sloths and some of the penguins, and immerse the audio description around the soundscape. Because what better way is there to get the concept development idea of the size of something or the speed or the power that it has in nature than to feel like you're there, immersed. So that's been one of the coolest things so far for me. And otherwise, I'm sort of exploring the idea of home audio description, social media. A lot of this stuff we miss just on the day-to-day, and the reality is that TikTok is here to stay and other apps like it. So if we also had some way to experience personal, life events and things with audio description, that would fill that gap. So I kind of see that as possibly being an avenue to explore.
It's so exciting to hear all of these things. The creativity involved in that first example of the sound walk with the soundscape. You've used the word immersive a handful of times just in this first section that we're talking about. That access of immersion helps with the let me use a different word, assists with the size, the speed, and the power, but also that this is TV and film focus, and that immersion makes such a difference for us as fellow voice talents, and also for our audiences to get that immersion experience. And whether it's binaural audio recording where it feels like it's this 3D sound that's behind your neck or in the middle of your brain or in front of you, and the location of that experience is so much more than just hearing a mono track. So it's really great to hear the developments here.
Thank you.
Could you expand a little bit more about the social media and the life events? I'm thinking about audio alt text is the best way that I can wrap my head around what you're talking about.
That's a really good way to put it. I mean, the capability of something like ChatGPT to give you a pretty good description of an image, that's kind of coming, I would imagine, with alt text, where it will just get better and better about describing things accurately, especially with quality control. But in this case, actually, it's funny you bring up the alt text, because I'm sort of considering there are a couple of tools that I've started being able to use through command line Python. A friend of mine who does captioning created these tools with ChatGPT 4 The idea being that you can take synthetic audio description and place it so you can make sure that when you're getting ready to create the audio description, you're in the process of drafting it for, say, social media or home, you're able to place it and make sure it fits first. Then you sit down and record it. Like, it saves a little bit of time with extended audio description, where even if it's a human narrator, you can go ahead and place that. So the reason I bring that up for social media is because videos in our day and age are very quick, they move very fast, and in my mind, I think maybe extended audio description will probably be an option that dominates that space, because I just don't know how much room there is. If it's something more formal like a wedding video, I can imagine there being space built in more so you could fit standard. But ultimately, the writing process of it for someone who is blind is a little bit tough to write audio description without sighted assistance. So both myself and my partner, co-founder, are blind, so we need that additional human in the process who can help us draft scripts. And we were thinking of how could this be streamlined and some time being saved to get to, like, at the start. That would probably be AI. So I could see a future where potentially there's a large language model that's able to take a video, be trained on hours of audio description that's quality, and then give you an initial draft of a script. Then that saves the writer time, and the writer would really need to just help you iron out the details, make sure everything is accurate. And then you, as the person who's visually impaired, you can go in and adjust the writing to make it even better. So this approach cuts down some time. And I was thinking of how this operation could be scaled. This would probably be the best way, and it would be save a lot of time, which saves cost to the end consumer, who the end consumer wouldn't have a whole lot of money to pay for these sort of audio descriptions. And that's what we want to consider from the beginning, is keeping costs affordable.
This creativity is so exciting to hear about. I think about the information versus entertainment, which has been a real focus, particularly in the film and TV sector, when there's multi-million-dollar productions that are cutting costs. And actually, let me be super clear: it's not necessarily the production; it's the platform that's providing that multiple productions that are making sure that they're able to get as much content out there as I'm going to use the word cheaply as possible. In the context of what you're talking about when it comes to a life event or social media, like you said, that's super fast, and it is not really an investment. That what I'm hearing from you is this approach using technology is that you don't need a sighted human for now, that you're providing this using the technology of existing content, and with quality control, you're able to get this extended audio description accomplished in a way that you can take advantage of just the basic information. What's on screen, so to speak, is being identified by an AI, and you and your partner or whoever is blind is able to identify what's the most relevant thing that's happening here. It's really exciting to hear about this approach.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The other goal there would really be to work with the user and give them almost a questionnaire of what is important to you, what do you care about? Because we can talk about style guides and best practices and standards, and that applies to entertainment because it has to have a standard. But if it's something that's very personal to someone, or maybe a granddaughter wants to make her wedding video accessible for her grandmother, what would her grandmother really want to know about? That sort of personal touch, I feel, is important in that quality control process and bringing in the individual who's affected by this video. And then the other thought I had was if and when we do get to the point where a large language model can give us pretty accurate results, we're going to need the quality control, and obviously to make sure that it's giving you ethical information and it's approaching responses. And the only way to do that is to have a trial period where it's almost like a 5-minute free task. If you're an IRA user, you recognize that. But almost like a 5-minute video. Submit your 5-minute video, give us your feedback in this survey. Once you're done, help us improve the quality of the model. And if all of us are doing that, I think that would give us even better results to start with. So we need less time bringing in outsourcing the writing, and we can spend more time on really quality controlling and making sure everything is portrayed correctly. And then the other thing I found recently was if you have a Microsoft 365 account, you can go in and put in an audio file. If you have a subscription, you can apply to get unlimited minutes, and this will create a transcript of an audio file for free in a Word document that's tagged and accessible. And then you're able to change speaker A to mom, speaker B to dad, for example. And it will change all of the instances. It'll show you the time codes. So it's a very good way to start, especially if you have to feed a transcript in. And then with Python tools, this extended audio description becomes a lot more accessible to a screen reader user, because how I'm running it now is using command prompt to run the scripts in the directories. It's pretty epic. It's pretty awesome what's coming.
Yes. In all these examples, we have to come back to how much room. You had mentioned that. There's a spectrum that I'm hearing, that this is not all or nothing thinking. This approach that you're talking about is using technology creatively in a way that supports the end user and the creator in a way that brings the best of both together without stepping on one or the other. It's not the ChatGPT AI taking over everything. It's, you had mentioned quality control. There's asterisks here that keep those approaches to support what you want it to support. It's if I could use the analogy of it's a mathematician using a calculator in the sense of you are putting in the content and it's using the math to figure it out. And in this context, the ChatGPT is identifying the images, and you as quality controller, the user who decides, oh, I want to make sure that, my mom is featured in this wedding video. It's like those kinds of specifics can be really identified. And I love the idea of spectrum, of the spectrum of approach here, of how much control you as a creator or you as an audience decide allows for the technology to support what you want. I think that segues pretty well, if this is all right, to talk about how much room. That one of the enemies of time when it comes to film and TV has always been, well, this TV show has to be from 8:30 to 9, and we need to allow for commercials, so it's got to be exactly 22 minutes, and we've got to tell this particular story, so there's no room. And now we've got streaming services that are much more flexible. Sometimes a 1-hour show is 56 minutes, sometimes it's an hour and 4 minutes, and it's the same series. That there's starting to be some flexibility here. And when you talk about the flexibility on extended audio description, I see a real parallel there, that enemy of time is not there. Could we expand a little bit on that? And also, I don't want to make sure I'm pile driving too hard when we talk about the spectrum. I don't want to jump that. If you have any comments to make about that too.
I agree that extended audio description a lot of the times is a great option, especially imagine like watching a PowerPoint video in a corporate setting. It's a training, and there's a chart that the speaker's alluding to in their discussion, but they're not really explaining it very well. So this is where you'd want to pause, likely after the speaker is done discussing the slide, unless the understanding of that needs to come before, in which case you'd want to place that appropriately depending on context. And that's something you'd have to decide each time. But it's one of those things that you're probably helping with extended audio description, everyone in general, especially if there is something to be noticed on screen or a lot of text to be read. I know a lot of times when I'm watching something with folks who are sighted, who are trying to read the text on screen, they can never get through all of it. Maybe they can skim, but they don't even have enough time. So in those situations, it's universal design. It could just help everyone involved. So it would apply to wedding videos. Maybe it's focusing on a particular shot during the wedding, and it's a nice picture or whatever, or a nice freeze frame. You're describing it in detail, and others can sit there and appreciate it more.
There's a real element of choice, of decision that seems to be coming up a lot, whether it's if we go back to the very beginning of that AD tour, the sound walk, the creativity that's put into that of deciding here's the birds and this is going to be recorded on this particular mic that's going to make it a lot more accessible. Accessible in the sense not of disability access, but accessible in the sense of really getting into that nuance. I'm curious about that immersion when it comes to you as a voice talent. If we could pivot away from the technology side and into the creative side of your performance, whether that's within audio description itself or maybe in some other aspects of VO, could you talk about what you contribute with your use of your voice and how you make that work?
Oh, absolutely. So one of, I think, the things that I really enjoy about voice acting is coming up with a character and trying to put myself in their shoes while remaining true to who they are in the story and their place, their motivations, and all that. So that sort of speaks to subtitling. A lot of us voice talent who are doing narration for audio description may do a lot of subtitles when applicable. Some companies prefer, especially depending on what their client wants, would want you to do a more monotone delivery that doesn't have a whole lot of inflection because you want to match the tone, or it's supposed to be more of a corporate sort of subtitle where there isn't a whole lot of emotion going on. They're just narrating something. I like subtitles. Like I've done a couple of Real Abilities films where there are various performers or different, like maybe a climber, people with different disabilities these are basically inspirational short films. So doing the subtitles for those people is special because you're bringing this to everyone's ears, everyone that wouldn't normally understand French or what have you. So it's important to me in those situations, whatever subtitles I'm doing, that I'm able to capture the emotion if that's something that I'm allowed or not allowed to do, but if that's something that the producer is happy with, then I enjoy doing the emotion, trying to really match the tone. Because as a consumer, I love when, for example, Laura Post does a great job with this. She changes her voice dynamic to fit whatever the character is, but she has such a separated narrative voice from that. So you won't be confused as a listener, oh, she's doing subtitles versus she is reading the narration part. And that split is very effective, I think, because it keeps you in the story. And at that point, the audio describer is not taking you out of the story with their performance. They're building it in your mind and painting the picture to where you don't even really notice they're there. So that's my goal, is having that balance continue with whatever project I'm working on.
I love how you phrase that. We've talked so much about the story immersion, the emotion of matching the tone, and in the example that you gave with subtitles in AD, whether it's the Real Abilities or other films, that does make a difference. There's a whole skill set of dubbing actors who dub in a way that really are incredibly talented, and
Yeah.
I do see a place where when those multi-million-dollar productions are able to say to see the value and say, whether it's having the different voices voice different characters. And as you said, being able to have someone like Laura Post be able to deliver that. She is an incredible talent who's able to take those words and make them come alive in a way that it's not the Laura Post show. It's the show of the show that we're watching, that we can totally dive right in. So
Exactly.
It's really great examples there, and thank you for sharing that about the matching tone. That's one of the reasons we created the ADNA Presents was to help our audiences understand that immersion, whether it's the writer, the voice talent, the editing, the mix, that all of these elements in film and TV, specifically AD, help make that story come alive. But also in the examples that you've given, whether it's that sound walk or that wedding or whatever home video or social media post on TikTok. There is that element that makes it that much better when there's someone like you, a voice talent, that's bringing these words, not just reading them, but bringing them to life.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a callback to one of our recent interviews about it's not just reading.
That's great. I love plugs like that. Like when I binge podcasts, I'm like, yes, another plug, woohoo! Um, no, I totally agree. I think it's if you can complement the story, then you're doing your job. You're complimenting the writer, and there's nothing worse than that audiobook that we listen to. We just cannot get through because the voice is just not quite right for that performance or that genre or something. So yeah, it's almost like being a not an audiobook narrator, but fitting into whatever situation you're in as the narrator.
Just curious, in audiobooks or audio description, how quickly can you identify that you're in good hands once you hear a voice? I'm going to guess it's a phrase or even less than a sentence that okay, I'm going to be in good hands.
Yes, and also I can tell if it's a TTS voice
Yeah.
pretty quick too, because sometimes these Apple like this scandal with Apple taking voice actors' data and making synthetic voices, and then they're trying to pass it off as a narrator, and it's not. Uh, that's we'll find out in that realm because I know a lot of voice talent are worried about that. In that realm, I don't think AI is even close to replacing nuance and performance, and our jobs are safe.
We haven't really talked about Get Braille. I think this seems like a good time to dive in there, and then we'll give you some time to share some other stuff. So let's talk a little bit more about your business and uh, your getbraille.com.
Yeah, thank you. So I co-founded GetBraille.com in June of 2022. There, my previous experience to that was at Perkins School for the Blind. I worked as the Braille production specialist there for 7 years, and it gave me quite a bit of experience with Braille production. So once I left Perkins, I decided why not do kind of my own small business version. And really, what we focus on, of course, is Braille large print audio. We'll put things into accessible formats for organizations and individuals with print disabilities, but at affordable costs and at a quick turnaround with obviously with quality materials. And then the other thing that we're looking to explore, as I briefly mentioned earlier, is the audio description side for home audio descriptions as well as social media. And other than that, eventually, as we grow, we're looking to get into low-tech assistive technology solutions like a metal left-to-right slate and stylus, where you no longer have to worry about reversing the dots in your mind and trying to write right to left and keep all that straight, because I know for me that is just an impossible task that I don't ever bother with just because it's mind-boggling. So Europe, they actually have one in Europe that they've 3D printed, but it's made for A4 paper. There's no version that works for the US, and we'd love to be able to make a better version for the US market for it, just as an affordable solution. The Perkins Braille Writer is very expensive, and this would be a lot easier to carry around. And then things like slate, I mentioned the slate, and then we want to make like a Scotch tape labeler and other solutions. But at the heart of it all, we want it to remain affordable, easy to order, easy to work with us, and just a small kind of business that's here to help with birthday cards, with anything that's needed, business card overlays, jumbo Braille for young Braille readers or folks who have neuropathy, which is essentially larger cell Braille. And then we also do combo menus, Braille and large print. We call them accessible menus for restaurants, along with trainings for staff should they need any sort of guidance on, well, how do I offer this menu and how do I help someone navigate, the options, etc. This isn't generally offered by vendors, and we feel like it would be an additional helpful resource for restaurant owners who may or may not be very familiar with the process or with some guidelines, basically. So yeah, in addition to that, we do consulting of, say, someone wants a usability tester for their website. They're not sure if it works with screen readers, if there are glaring issues they need to address, or just smaller labeling tasks. So we're able to provide basic information on that. We don't do audits or anything, but just to give someone peace of mind of this is tagged properly, for example.
Hmm.
And other consulting services, like if someone has a product, they want to know if it's accessible or they want it tested. And now with the aquarium, doing this project of possibly doing stages where first it's creating Braille large print guidebooks, then it's going to be recording the immersive audio description, and after that, possibly plaques that are 3D. And then we're also working on a project with our local Lions Club for a Braille trail. So we're getting a little bit more into the physical accessibility space in some ways of making something immersive, where you've got a scent component. So on the Braille trail, we're going to have herbs. You have the plaques that you can feel, then the Braille in large print as well that you can physically read or see easier because it's larger, and interactive puzzles and outdoor installations. So we're in quite a couple of different areas of the I guess blindness space, if you will.
I'm here in the virtual reality. I'm here in the augmented reality. Ripley's has got to be so lucky.
Yeah, we're excited about this project. It's going to be a lot of fun. We also got some contact microphones, and we're looking into parabolic to record some of their birds. So it'll be a wonderful learning process, and we'll grow as we move forward. I've got actually binaural microphones, so I'm looking forward to the mixing challenge of all of this and audio describing. So this will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you start talking binaural. I'm like, oh, yay, here we go.
I love binaural. It's the best.
Tanya, is there anything else you'd like to share that we haven't covered yet?
The last thing to say is we're looking to develop accessible like sales tools. For example, easier ways that someone who's visually impaired or blind can do a sales job. Salesforce is accessible, but there are so many solutions out there that companies use, like HubSpot, that are not accessible, but they're cost effective for those companies. And there are so many, just in general, inaccessible search tools for contacts, for names, phone numbers, all that. So it would be nice to have open source, accessible tools that organizations can just allow someone to use in their day-to-day that would make their job a lot easier, even if they're changing jobs. So that's one of our slow burn projects, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
GPT-4 is making it so much easier to work with a developer who doesn't have a whole lot of time to commit, or you can't afford a whole lot of time. They can sit down and work with it to create basic tools, and then you can perfect them with feedback. So it's a lot easier moving forward and a lot more hope in terms of being able to afford developers. So we're looking forward to seeing where all that goes. It would be nice to have an accessible, cheaper alternative that you can use in concert with Salesforce, for example, or if you don't have Salesforce, to just have it available as a tool.
And it does sound like personal experience is definitely feeding this slow burn that you're talking about.
Definitely. A lot of it is. A lot of it is trying to solve problems that I wish were solved.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
And let's go over how we can follow you, social media, website. We've already mentioned getbraille.com, but if there's other websites specific to you or your company, could you share?
Absolutely. Thank you. So you can definitely find me at getbraille.com, or my voiceover website is Tanja, Tanja, M as in Mary, voice.com. So that's TanjaMvoice.com. It's got demos and other portfolio pieces of various shows. And yeah, and you can also email me at Tanja, Tanja, 631 at gmail.com. And find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those fun social media networks. I'm not on Twitter very much, so I would definitely recommend LinkedIn or Facebook. I'd love to connect, and I'm here as a resource or to answer any questions or help in any way.
Thanks so much, Tanya.
Thanks, Roy.